Well, I'm excited. I am your host, Evangelist Cherie Stevens. I am just blessed, beyond blessed, because God keeps doing great things for us. Somebody said he keeps on doing great things. He keeps on making ways. He keeps on bringing us out. He keeps on delivering us. Aren't you glad that God just does not deliver us one time, but he forgives us over and over and over again? He's that kind of God. And my first guest this hour is going to bless you. She has a testimony and a journey. She comes from across the world, from Australia, if you will. Please help me welcome the author, Trish Jenkins. How are you, Trish?
I'm great, Cherie. It's great to be here. G'day.
Thank you so much for coming. You have an incredible story and journey, but it is a story of triumph. After going through some things, God has turned some things around in your favor. And I know our audience wants to know about that. Tell our viewers about you and what God is doing with you.
Oh, God is just so amazing. My husband and I were very successful. We went from nothing to building up a big property portfolio. We were successful financially. We were leaders in our church. We were blessed and we were big. We thought we were living our calling, which was to finance the kingdom of God. That's just what we lived for.
Wow.
And then we invested with somebody who turned out to be a crook.
Wow.
Didn't know. And I actually had a business arrangement with this person, and that put me in a risky position that I didn't realise. And then suddenly the investment fell over, and we didn't know that it had fallen over. Basically, he had stolen people's money.
Wow.
And it was a big Ponzi scheme, which is where what they do is they give you returns that are really your own money coming back, but they tell you that it's the increase on the investment. And we didn't know, but he stopped paying, and it was my job to tell everyone we were not getting paid anymore for that month. And that happened another month, and then another month, and then I couldn't take it anymore, and I caved under pressure. And I made a wrong decision. And I still had money coming in from people knowing he wasn't paying because they didn't want to miss out. And I had some money come in, and I said to him, do you think just this once we could give people some relief? They're needing their money. Could we use just this to pay them? He said, let's do that. And that's what I did. And Cherise, it was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't see an alternative. There would have been, but I just couldn't see it. I just caved under that pressure. People-pleasing, fear of man.
Right.
Thought I was stronger than that, but obviously I wasn't. I've since learned. Now, because of that, I didn't steal it, but I paid everyone with it, and I shouldn't have. So we were put into voluntary liquidation. Not very voluntary, but we lost, over a period of 2 years, we lost everything we had. Half a dozen houses, all our money. Our financial advisor actually ripped us off for $275,000 at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, through another deal that he did that was just, because we thought, oh, at least we've got that. No, stripped us of everything. Then we went to work to pay lawyers, basically, for another couple of years. And during that time, I went to work for a corporate investigator where I learned about fraud warning signals and what I wish I had known.
Oh, wow.
And so I wrote my first book, didn't publish it, but that was one on fraud warning signals to warn people of how to spot wolves in sheep's clothing, because they're in great operation in churches as well as other places. And I just wanted to stop it happening from other people. Well, that wasn't the end of it. That wasn't enough. The government decided to prosecute me for breaching the Corporations Act. And in 2009, in January, I went to prison for 8 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 2.5 years suspended after 8 months, and that was federal prison, right in there with the heavies.
My goodness. I mean, what was going through your mind? I mean, here you were, you didn't know, you're involved with something that you didn't know was going to happen this way, and then to be prosecuted. Wow. And the part you were in the church.
I was. You know, most people who go to prison who become Christians, it's like they're in prison and they call on God and they get gloriously saved and, you know, from crime to Christ, from these great stories which we'll love to read. But I was already a Christian. I'm not supposed to do that sort of stuff,
right.
You know. And it was just bizarre. It was Twilight Zone stuff. And I could have got anything from a fine, but I actually got the maximum you could get. And that's just incredible. However, the Lord gave me a peace. Now, up until that time, I was terrified, it was upsetting, and I went through all the normal emotions. And of course, we had to actually move in with my parents before I went to court, so that should I go away, my mother could mother my children.
Wow.
For us. And of course, and my mother and father, they're pastors.
Okay.
Yeah, of a great church.
Wow.
And so they were in court when I was there during the week, and then on the Sunday they had to speak to the church and say, well, this is what's happened in our family, and this is what we're going through, and we would really appreciate your support. And they were fantastic, and they wrote to me, and they supported my family. It was just wonderful. But the Lord, I had to get to a point, and obviously I was a believing God for deliverance.
Yes.
I was hoping that my testimony was going to be, whew, that was close.
Right.
Real close. Well, I got closer than I thought. And he took me through the fire. And I had to overcome the embarrassment and the shame and the failure and just feeling stupid. And the accusations of people, you were obviously greedy. You know, they didn't know where we were giving. We give quietly because we don't brag about it. So they didn't know what we were doing with God's money. And we were giving it away. And we're thinking, God, but we're such big givers. Shouldn't you be doing it this way?
Right.
You know, where is our reward? But you see, God's reward is often long-term, and often it's how we respond to situations that changes things. You know, you don't have to go to prison to feel trapped, but how you respond to your situation is the key.
Yes.
And I got to the point of total surrender, and I just said, Lord, though you slay me, yet I will praise you. That's a tough position to get to. But in that release, I felt the peace of God that does pass all understanding.
Oh, my.
And I just knew that I knew that I knew. And God gave me a few scriptures to back it up about what I didn't know exactly what he would do or how he would do it. I just had to trust.
Yes.
And I had to overcome my fear of man and my shame. And that was a process for God to strengthen me and show me keys to coping while I was in there. Learning to overcome the hang-ups that come with the humiliations and the way you're treated, and just being strip searched by a pair of butch lesbian officers is pretty. It's pretty. I mean, I laugh about it now.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you do? You either go mad or you laugh.
My gosh.
Which could be the same thing. I'm not sure. But
right.
Sanity is a relative thing, isn't it?
Yes.
But you know what he did? I went into that place and I saw these broken, many people who go to prison come from dysfunctional backgrounds and in poverty and drug addiction and abuse. And I couldn't feel sorry for myself.
Wow.
I don't come from an abused background. I'm sorry. I don't have the testimony where I was beaten and abused. And I have every compassion on people who have, but I came from a loving family. We were Christians, not all my life. I didn't become one until I was 16. But the Lord was so real to me. And he showed me these people who previously I had categorised as, they're like people do. They're criminals and they're weak and dysfunctional, and they are. But the Lord showed me them from his perspective, how he saw them. And my heart just turned inside out and changed, and I just felt a love for these people. Now, sure, some of them were nasty and horrible and hated God and blamed him for their circumstances, but I was able to share with them in a way that others couldn't, because I was in there with them, sitting on that concrete floor, just sitting there with them. There was one woman who was crying on the floor, and I asked her what the matter was, and she said she had just been told by her lawyer that when she gets out, Family Services is not going to give her children back to her.
Wow.
Now, I could have thought, oh, she must be a terrible mum, crikey.
Right.
But instead, I took a hand and I said, and I broke the rules because I would get in trouble for my faith. I just couldn't help it. And I said, well, look, I can't imagine how you feel, and there's nothing I can do. When I had money, I could put people in touch with lawyers and do things for them and rescue them. Rescuing people is what got me in trouble in the first place. But I said, you know what, you're not nothing. You matter, you have value, and my God loves you.
Yes.
And if you ask me to, I'll pray for you. And she did. And so, because I did get in trouble for my faith, and I wasn't allowed to pray for people, but they would come and ask me, because you can have an opinion or you can care.
That's
and what are
good.
people going to respond to?
That's right.
And I led many of them to the Lord and prayed for a whole lot more. And I just have this heart for people. And now I speak to, you know, since I came out, I've published my books, and I speak to secular business groups, and they want to know how it all happened, where did my strength come from? And I have to be honest and tell them Jesus. And they listen,
Yes.
because I carry the weight of what I've been through, and the evidence is there that Jesus is what helped me through.
Yes.
And many times I've prayed for people afterwards, you know, and
This is so
introduced them to
powerful.
Jesus. So
This is so powerful because we've heard stories like this where people took their lives.
oh,
You know,
shocking.
they could not handle the pressure
Yep.
of what they were going through. But thank God for Jesus.
Oh, it just makes all the difference. And he showed me keys to coping. You know, I got back I came home and, yeah, I was broken for a while. I had to get my emotional and mental equilibrium back.
Yes.
And the Lord helped me do that.
Thank God.
And the keys for that were to slow down, not be busy, take my time, spend time with the Lord, and ask him for his perspective.
Yes.
And go over things and forgive and make when I learned how to forgive and make my feelings line up. And that's often the bit that's missing. We're told, oh, you've got to forgive, you've just got to decide to.
Right.
Well, how do you decide to? How do you make your feelings, oh, feelings aren't facts, they're just lies. Well, they still hurt.
That's right.
You still want to get up and rip someone's throat out. Well, maybe not. You know, I met women in there who were in there for murder,
Yeah.
and you think, oh, they're a murderer. Then you discover they bumped off the fella that raped their daughters.
Wow.
Well, do you see them the same way then? Mm-hmm. You know, so forgiveness is about asking God for his perspective of that person, not
Yes.
yours. Because between you and that person, there's this interference, which is your pain and your hurt. But when you ask for his perspective of that person, it's clearer. And you go, oh, you know, oh, they're not, you know, he sees them differently.
Wow.
And then of you and of the situation. And then Jesus said, pray for your enemies.
Yes, God.
It's very hard to pray for a prison officer who has given you a hard time. And then I remember this one particular fellow, and I felt like vomiting in a bucket. I would rather have done that, but I prayed for his family, his relationship, his children, his past, his relationship with his father, which was obviously dysfunctional, going by the way he was behaving. And as I prayed in detail, I started to see him differently. I started to have compassion and pity, and all the bitterness and toxins just drained away.
Thank God.
And that's what I teach other people to do, and just show them that, because there's healing. One of the reasons people don't step into the blessings of God is because they've got these little hard little bits in the very far corners of their hearts for different people who've upset them, and they think they're forgiven, but they haven't really.
My God.
Because they haven't got that God perspective. You know, it's so powerful, and it's just so freeing. Freeing. And I'm just so happy to be here. Now I'm in America.
I know.
Ministering at conferences, both secular and Christian.
My God.
And I'm here with you, Cherise. How exciting is that?
I love what you're doing. I'm just listening to you. First of all, I'm just taken away by your accent. I love it. And
What
just
accent?
yeah, right. And your story.
I know.
But God has brought you out to be victorious, and you're sharing what God allowed you to go through.
Yeah.
To the world, to the nations.
I know. And the book is not a memoir. I wrote that. I didn't know I was writing a book. That is my letters.
Okay.
And my journal entries of things that I couldn't put in letters.
Okay.
Because I would start by writing to a couple of people, and it was using up my stamps, and I was writing the same thing. I said to my husband on the phone, because he did nothing wrong. He was just, you know, along for the ride, basically, and had to preserve the family and look after me. Wonderful man. I couldn't do it without him.
Yeah.
Oh, praise God for my husband.
Yes.
He's cute too.
That matters.
Oh, he's a spunk. Anyway, so I was writing, I said to him, can I send you one letter? You take out the bits that are just for you, and could you type it out as an email and send it to this handful of people? And he said, all right, I'll do that. So I did that, and that email list grew, and it went viral.
My God.
And I was receiving letters from people while I was in prison telling me how they were encouraged. So I was writing for them, and I wrote everything down. Some stuff I can't put in letters, but it's in that book.
Listen, I want our viewers to connect with you. I love what you said, that God is allowing you to minister to Christian organizations and non-Christian organizations.
Yep. Business groups,
all of that. Look into our camera. We have 30 seconds. Tell them how to get your book and partner with you.
I would love for you to connect with me. You can go to my website, which is www.speakertrishjenkins.com. That's my name, speakertrishjenkins.com. Contact me through the contacts page, or you can write to me, trish@trishjenkins.com.au. The .au is for Australia. Send me a message. My book is on Amazon. It's on my website. And if you've got somewhere that if you'd like me to come and share my story and minister and strengthen the church, strengthen your church or your business group, then let me know, because I'll be coming back.
Absolutely. Trish Jenkins, what an amazing testimony. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And you've got to come back.
I will.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know you're being blessed. I want you to get her book. Invite her to come and to share the wealth and the knowledge that God has given to her.